Hi, Henrik Knudsen here. I would like to add a few comments to this article, Business Model Innovation, Opportunities and Barriers by Henry Chesbrough. And it's in the article of in the publication Long Range Planning 2009. Okay, let's get moving. And Henry Chesbrough, remembering he's the person that coined the concept of open innovation, and hence also finds it relevant indeed to comment on the different aspects of business models. Just trying to catch this one up here. Okay. I just had to find out how to make this layout so I wasn't up there and I was able to move scroll through the different contents. But anyway, he's having a look at this, and interestingly enough, here's some of the things that a business model fulfills. So a business model has the following functions. Read through each one of them and reflect on the business models you know, or think about, is this relevant? Does it cover all the aspects that are needed in the business model? One of the things and is there anything that could be added? I'd like to point out to one thing that could be added. It says support precision in the value chain. And it's quite a restrictive way of looking at it, because the value chain can be supported or supplemented by the value shop and the value network. So it's not just a value chain, also a value shop or value network. Some companies are better described by a shop or a network. And then he has a question down here where he looks at Xerox, the copier company. I find this is quite interesting. What is actually the copier company? If we look at it in Tidin Basal's 4 P's of innovation space, the copier company could say it's a product or a service, but it's also the paradigm, the mental model that Xerox wants to express to itself and its outer world. And being a paradigm, this is what actually determines its way of thinking. Let me give you an example, a way of thinking about the company. Olivetti was a company very large in producing typewriters. Now, all of a sudden, the computer and the printer took over. What would have happened if Olivetti had said, well, they were a company producing documents for private and professionals, producing documents and not producing a typewriting machine? Then they could have more easily have made the transformation to going from typewriters to, for example, printers. But they saw themselves as making typewriting machines. There's a small illustration of how these paradigm, the mental model that you see an organization in one sense helps a company to focus on what to look at, and in other sense also have make some serious restrictions on what the company can actually accomplish. Bearing these eyes, try and think about this when you reading the rest of the text, because it's very much of business models is also a question of which paradigms, which mental models are we using to look at the organization. Gives it some interesting development options, in my opinion. And what else? Actually, speaking of this with the mental model, you could also link it to Dasu with her innovation diamond, saying, well, the mental model defines the knowledge that the company saves and treasures, because this is within their definite area of business, and it also defines more or less what non-knowledge that they're seeking for, because if they're seeking for non-knowledge or knowledge that they don't know, that can supplement the knowledge that they already have. So it's a copier company. It's seeking for knowledge within making copies, and at the same time seeking for knowledge that it hasn't got that can supplement, support its existing knowledge base. It's a tricky one, but try and work with it from Dasu's dimension with knowledge and non-knowledge within the organization. Ask some questions when we meet. And what else do we have here? This is a good example that actually supports what I just said with Dasu and the knowledge, because when they were working with Eric finding new technologies that didn't suit Xerox as a copying and their existing business plans, they became orphans within the company. So it didn't know what to do with the technologies. They had knowledge, they didn't know what to do because it didn't suit their existing way of thinking, their mental models. So they became orphans within a company, and some of them, scientists were allowed to take the project to the outside world on their own. So this is spin-offs. If scientists or developers were working with a special project they found keen interest in, Xerox gave them the option of making a spin-off company and seeing if they could benefit from it, and in that way provide value for new customers. And what else do we have that I would like to comment on? The barriers to business. You are in this barriers to business. This is where we talk about his concept and Christensen's concept of disruptive technology, or disruptive innovation. Now try and exchange the disruptive technology, disruptive innovation in the following with radical innovation. So radical innovation where it actually changes the whole logic of the way that business is being done. So essentially, if it's incremental innovation or incremental technology, it's much easier to adapt within an existing organization than it is if it's disruptive. If you want a good case, have a look at Kodak when they went from producing when picture images went from made by a wet film that Kodak dominated to digital cameras. Completely turned out very well functioning because it was a disruptive technology and Kodak just couldn't adapt to it. Perhaps also due to their mental model that their way of business was not providing photographs and pictures to the customers, but it was providing wet film technology. And let's move on. And here you have some comments later with what actually happens. This is the next page. Here we are. So this talking about failures and mistakes. Distinguishing failures from mistakes. So when they're experimenting, when organizations are experimenting with new technologies, new business models, then they should distinguish between failures and mistakes, where the failures are natural outcomes of experimenting, but can be quite useful at a later stage, whereas mistakes is if it's if the experiments with the technology or the business model are too poorly designed without yielding any new learning. In my opinion, that's quite an interesting observation. As in my opinion, it's a little trickier working with failures and mistakes, so they are either the one or the other. Instead of taking this action, saying, okay, how much learning can we extract from experimenting either with our technologies or with our business model? So is it low learning or high learning that we have from these experiments, instead of categorizing them as either failures and mistakes? Interestingly enough, this with the learning capacity is also what he concludes at the end of this article. So let's move forward. Further down we have the concept from Saraswati with effectuation. Saraswati calls effectuation in terms of actually going out and developing a process. So in the effectuation theory, it's not a question of studying the market and finding out where's the needs or holes. It's much more a question of enacting it, i.e. developing a market and presenting a new product or a new service, enacting onto the environment. Two very different approaches. We'll be discussing them later in the Wood and McKinley with the constructivism. Is there an opportunity? Is it something that you actually construct and put out to the market, or is it something that you discover and identify on the marketplace and then take it into the organization and provide back to your customers? Two different perspectives, whereas a development process or a discovery process. Tricky, but some interesting aspects, and has some great implications for the way that organizations act. Then we come to the conclusions, and here it is. He says, well, we haven't got to the conclusions yet. Here we are. Some experience will fail, but as long as failure informs new approaches, i.e. there is a learning. So the question is learning within the organization and learning from outside the organization with what's core to the business, the core competencies, but also finding out, is there some learning that can be used in a completely different context and be used as spin-outs or strategic business units. Spin-offs and strategic business units. If you want some good cases about that, have a look at 3M in their homepage, or have a look at Richard Branson and the way he has developed a lot of different companies, from railway to telephone to space, travel, etc. Makes strategic business units so they don't interfere with each other, but can work in each direction with their own business model. I think that concludes it, and we have a few minutes left, but I'll leave it at that. And please don't hesitate to send me a mail or write down some questions or queries that I can answer, or we can discuss at a later stage. Thank you.